The Harris family empire is currently imploding in the most public and humiliating way imaginable. We've seen the arrests and the heated arguments. But what just happened in the dark alleys of Atlanta is a betrayal so deep it makes everything else look like a playground dispute. King Harris has finally crossed the line of no return. We are talking about legendary multi-million-dollar jewelry. Pieces that define T's King of the South music legacy are reportedly being handed over to street rivals for mere pennies. But the real heartbreak, music, a leaked video, has just surfaced of T.I. in a state we have never seen before. Tears in his eyes, voice trembling with rage, as he officially prepares to do the unthinkable, disown his own flesh and blood. Stick around because who King sold that jewelry to changes everything, and T's response is a declaration of war you won't believe. Music, to truly understand why the streets of Atlanta are vibrating with shock right now, you have to understand the weight of the crown that T.I. has worn for over 2 decades. Clifford T.I. Harris isn't just a rapper. He is the King of the South. He is the man who took the struggle of the trap and turned it into a global empire. But for T.I., the jewelry was never just about flexing music or showing off on Instagram. Every diamond-encrusted chain, every custom-mold ring, and every luxury timepiece was a literal trophy from a war he won against the odds. Music, we are talking about legendary pieces that are etched into the history of hip-hop. The original Grand Hustle medallions, the multi-carat king pendants that grace the covers of platinum albums, and the custom-made watches that cost more than most people's homes. These pieces represented T's blood, sweat, and tears. They were intended to be a legacy, music something to be passed down through generations. A symbol that the Harris family would never have to return to the poverty T.I. fought so hard to escape. Music, T.I. has often spoken about how he wanted his children to understand the value of the struggle. But it seems that for King Harris, that message was lost in translation. While T.I. was building a fortress of wealth and respect, his 21-year-old son, King Harris, was seemingly building a bridge back to the very chaos his father escaped. For years, we have watched this father-son dynamic deteriorate in the most public way possible. King Harris has spent the better part of his young adulthood trying to prove that he is street enough, tough enough, and real enough despite the fact that he was raised in the lap of luxury. This constant need for street validation has created a rift in the Harris household that insiders say has been rotting for years. Think back to November 2023. The world watched in horror as a leaked video showed T.I. and King in a physical altercation at an Atlanta Falcons game. It wasn't just a loud argument. It was a desperate father trying to tell his son, "You are embarrassing yourself and your family." Music, T.I. was heard asking King if he'd ever actually seen a roach on his face or lived through genuine hardship. Music, King's response. He claimed he was standing on business and insisted he belonged on the streets. That moment was a turning point. Music, it proved that King didn't value the silver spoon his parents worked so hard to give him. In fact, he seemed to resent it. Since then, the headlines have only gotten darker. From the viral Waffle House confrontation, where King mocked low-wage employees, to the surreal April 2026 arrest, where he was pulled over in a camera-wrapped Tesla Cybertruck while wearing a bright yellow Pikachu onesie. Each incident felt like a slap in the face to T's brand. Music, the King of the South spent 30 years building an image of a sophisticated, logical, and powerful mogul only for a son to turn the family name into a social media punchline. But behind the scenes, the financial tension was reaching a breaking point. Sources close to the family report that T.I. had finally reached his limit. After the Pikachu arrest and the subsequent felony drug charges, T.I. reportedly cut King off. Music, he froze the trust funds, reclaimed the luxury vehicles, and told King that if he wanted to be a street man, he would have to fund it with street money. Music, T.I. thought this tough love would ground his son. He thought it would make King realize that the streets don't provide for you. Family does. But King Harris didn't take the lesson to heart. Instead, he took it as a challenge. He felt backed into a corner, humiliated by his father's public discipline, and he decided to strike back where it hurts the most. He didn't just want money. He wanted to hurt T's pride. He wanted to show the world that T's king status didn't mean anything to him. Rumors began to swirl in the Atlanta underground that King was looking to move heavyweight music items. People thought he was talking about cars or music equipment. No one imagined, not in their wildest dreams, that King would walk into his father's private vault and take the very symbols of the Harris legacy. This wasn't just a theft. It was an act of war. The stage was set for a confrontation that would not only destroy a family, but could potentially bring down the entire Grand Hustle empire. And as the grainy footage from that dark pawn shop exchange started to circulate, it became clear, King Harris wasn't just selling gold. He was selling his father's dignity to the highest and most dangerous bidder. The night of April 29, 2026, will forever be remembered as the night the Harris family crown was dragged through the mud. While T.I. was reportedly miles away in Buckhead attending a high-stakes board meeting, King Harris was miles away, not just physically but morally. New grainy surveillance footage obtained from a no-questions-asked jewelry exchange in one of Atlanta's most dangerous pockets tells a story of a son who had completely lost his way. In the video, which has been circulating on underground Telegram channels and T pages, you see a blacked-out SUV pull up to the curb. King Harris steps out looking over his shoulder, his hood pulled low to hide his face. But the frantic energy he projects is unmistakable. He enters a dimly lit back alley shop where a group of men, reportedly affiliated with a rival street faction T.I. has been at odds with for over a decade, are waiting for him. This wasn't a standard business transaction. This was a public execution of respect. Sources say King pulled several heavy black velvet pouches from his jacket. When he opened them, the room reportedly went silent. Laying on that dirty counter were pieces of hip-hop history. The multi-million-dollar custom Grand Hustle medallion, the legendary diamond-encrusted King pendant, and several watches that were personalized for T.I. after his biggest career milestones. To any jeweler, these are worth millions. But to the men in that room, they were trophies of a conquered king. The most sickening part: the negotiation, or lack thereof. Reports suggest that King Harris didn't even put up a fight for the price. He was reportedly handed a duffel bag containing less than $50,000 in cash. For a collection worth nearly $2 million, King accepted pennies. Why? Because the money wasn't the goal. King wanted to sever the tie. He wanted to bleed T's pride. He handed over the jewelry, grabbed the cash, and disappeared into the night, leaving his father's legacy in the hands of people who have spent years praying for T's downfall. By midnight, the photos started leaking. Members of that rival crew began posting Instagram stories mocking the King of the South. They were wearing T's chains, blowing smoke at the camera, and laughing about how easy it was to buy the crown from a boy who didn't know its value. The caption on one viral post read, "Thanks for the donation, King Harris. Tell your pops the streets say, thanks for the ice." When word finally reached T.I., the reaction was not what anyone expected. We've seen T.I. angry, we've seen him articulate, and we've seen him defensive. But sources say that when he saw those photos, he didn't say a word. He reportedly dropped his phone and walked out of the room, leaving his security detail in total confusion. The silence was more terrifying than any shouting match. He realized in that moment that he hadn't just lost his jewelry. He had lost his son to the very wolves he tried to protect him from. And here is the first massive twist that has the entire industry in a panic. As the rival crew celebrated their purchase, they realized something was wrong. Sources close to the situation claim that T.I. didn't just have these pieces insured. He had them protected. Music. Since his high-profile legal battles years ago, T.I. had reportedly commissioned a world-renowned security firm to install microscopic GPS trackers inside the gold casings of his most iconic pieces. Within 2 hours of the sale, the authorities were already tracking the pennies and the jewelry. But it gets worse, much worse. During the police raid that followed at the rival crew's hideout, they didn't just find the jewelry. They found a series of encrypted documents and a burner phone that King Harris had allegedly thrown in as part of the deal. The shocker. That phone reportedly contained a gold mine of private information about T's business dealings, his upcoming real estate projects, and confidential contracts. King hadn't just sold the gold. He had allegedly handed over the blueprints to T's entire financial empire. The sale for pennies was just a cover. King was reportedly trading his father's corporate secrets for a seat at the table with the enemies. T.I. wasn't just being robbed, he was being systematically dismantled by his own flesh and blood. Leaked texts from King's phone that night reportedly show him saying, "He cut my money, so I'm cutting his throat." Let's see who's the king now. The betrayal has gone from a family spat to a full-blown corporate and criminal conspiracy. And now, music. The feds are looking into whether King Harris was being coerced or if he is the mastermind behind a plot to take down the Grand Hustle legacy once and for all. By the morning of April 30th, 2026, the Harris family scandal wasn't just a rumor in the Atlanta underground. It was a global wildfire. The digital world exploded as the jewelry heist became the #1 trending topic on X, formerly Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. But it wasn't just fans talking. The entire music industry began to reel from the shockwaves. Music screenshots of the rival crew wearing T's iconic King medallion had been retweeted over 5 million times. Music, the image of those historic diamonds, symbols of a 30-year struggle, hanging around the necks of known enemies, was a visual dagger that no one could ignore. High-profile influencers and celebrity news outlets like TMZ and Hollywood Unlocked began running 24/7 coverage. The narrative was no longer about a rebellious son. It was about the total collapse of a hip-hop dynasty. The social media war zone Twitter threads began dissecting the grainy footage, with internet detectives pointing out the exact moment music King handed over the velvet bags. One viral thread, which garnered over 800,000 likes, claimed, "Music King Harris didn't just sell jewelry. He sold his soul for a few stacks of cash and a chance to be the tough guy his father never wanted him to be." This is the end of an era. Even other celebrities couldn't stay silent. 50 Cent, in typical fashion, posted a series of mocking memes, including a photoshopped image of himself wearing the Grand Hustle chain with the caption, "Hey Tip, I got a better price than the streets gave him. Call me next time your son needs a quick buck." The mockery was relentless, stripping T.I. of the respect he had spent decades earning. The blue folder betrayal, but while the public was focused on the gold and diamonds, a much more sinister truth was about to emerge. As the Gwinnett County Police began their investigation into the pawn shop exchange, music, a leaked police report surfaced on a dark web whistleblower site. This report contained a detail that turned the story from a theft into a federal nightmare. According to the leaked report, when King Harris met with those rival associates, he didn't just hand over a duffel bag of jewelry. He was also seen carrying a blue folder. This folder, which was recovered during the raid on the rival crew's hideout, allegedly contained T's private business tax records, confidential investment contracts for his new real estate developments, and most shockingly, unsigned affidavits involving a high-stakes legal battle T.I. is currently fighting behind the scenes. The setup that backfired, the industry was still reeling from the blue folder news when a second, even more unexpected twist dropped. An insider source from King Harris's inner circle went live on an anonymous Instagram account, making a claim that changed the entire narrative. The source alleged that King Harris didn't sell the jewelry because he was broke or because he hated his father. According to this source, King believed he was participating in a secret loyalty test. He allegedly claimed that an associate, someone he thought was working for T.I., had approached him and told him that T.I. wanted to see if King could handle the heat of a street transaction. King thought he was proving his worth to his father by moving the jewelry and the documents, music, to a safe house. But the reality is King had been groomed. He had been manipulated by a master manipulator within the rival faction, who knew exactly how to play on King's insecurities and his desperate need for his father's approval. King thought he was being a hustler for his dad, but he was actually handing over the keys to the kingdom to the very people who wanted to destroy it. A federal intervention. Just as this news broke, a fleet of black SUVs was spotted outside T's mansion in Atlanta. But they weren't there to protect him. Reports are coming in that federal agents have officially opened an inquiry into the blue folder documents. If those documents contain what insiders say they do, T.I. could be facing more than just a family betrayal. He Music could be looking at a total freeze of his assets and potential racketeering charges. All because his son handed over the wrong papers to the wrong people. The cliffhanger that has everyone terrified: T.I. hasn't been seen leaving his house since the SUVs arrived. Music. His only response was a cryptic post on his Instagram story that simply read, "The greatest trick the devil ever played was making a son believe his father was the enemy." Is T.I. preparing to surrender? Or is he about to drop a bombshell that proves King Harris was actually set up by someone even closer to the family? Music. But the tension is at a breaking point, and the next hour could determine the fate of the entire Harris legacy. Music. But the response to the Harris family implosion has been nothing short of a cultural earthquake, splitting the internet into two warring factions and sending shockwaves through the highest levels of the music industry. On one side, the veteran hip-hop community and the older generation of fans who watched T.I. climb from the streets of Bankhead to the top of the charts are expressing a level of vitriol and disgust that is rarely seen. Viral Facebook posts and long-form YouTube video essays are racking up millions of views, all centered on one theme: music, the absolute failure of modern parenting, and the toxic nature of clout culture. One particularly popular post from a veteran Atlanta DJ went viral with over 2 million shares, stating that King Harris has committed the ultimate sin, violating the sanctity of the family legacy for the sake of a street persona he never actually lived. The industry's reaction has been cold and calculated. High-end celebrity jewelers from New York to Los Angeles are reportedly holding emergency meetings with several prominent figures in the Diamond District, publicly announcing a lifetime ban on King Harris. They aren't just protecting the jewelry, they are protecting the prestige of the craft. To these masters, seeing a historic piece like the Grand Hustle medallion sold for pennies is a desecration of the art form itself. Meanwhile, major brands and corporate partners who have long stood by T.I. are reportedly pausing their associations. The Blue Folder leak, which suggested that King traded sensitive corporate data, has made T.I. a high-risk asset. Industry insiders are whispering that the Harris brand is currently radioactive, and several upcoming real estate developments linked to T.I. are reportedly seeing investors pull out in real music time. But the internet being the chaotic place that it is, a counter-narrative has begun to take root among Gen Z and the more radical street accounts on TikTok. The hashtag freaking and the hashtag stand in business have gained surprising traction, with some arguing that T.I. pushed his son to this point through public humiliation and excessive control. These supporters argue that if T.I. hadn't cut King off and shamed him on podcasts, King would never have felt the need to prove himself in such a drastic way. This has sparked a massive generational debate, with millions of users arguing over whether a father's tough love is responsible for a son's betrayal. The comment sections are a battlefield, with one fan writing, "Tip forgot where he came from and tried to cage a lion," while a critic fires back, "King isn't a music lion. He's a spoiled kid who just burned down his own house for a few likes." The celebrity world is equally divided. Music. While some of T's contemporaries have reached out with private messages of support, Music and others have used the opportunity to fuel the fire. 50 Cent's relentless mockery has triggered a wave of meme culture that is stripping the situation of its gravity and turning T's genuine heartbreak into a global punchline. However, the most chilling reaction came from a rival Atlanta rapper who went live on Instagram to simply show himself sitting at a table with a stack of papers that looked suspiciously like the documents from the blue folder. He didn't say a word. He Music just smiled and ended the stream. This single silent act has fueled more conspiracy theories than any news report could, with people now convinced that T.I.'s rivals aren't just holding his jewelry, they are holding his entire future. Music news outlets like CNN and Fox 5 Atlanta have picked up the story, not as a celebrity gossip piece, but as a potential criminal investigation. Legal analysts are appearing on screen to discuss the implications of the blue folder and whether King Harris could be charged with corporate espionage or grand larceny against his own family. The division between those who see this as a tragic family collapse and those who see it as a deserved dethroning of the King of the South is wider than ever. But as the fan debates rage on and the memes continue to circulate, a more terrifying reality is setting in. The music public doesn't just want answers. They want to see how far T.I. will go to protect what's left of his name. The statement that is currently fueling the most controversy is a leaked quote from an anonymous record executive who said, "T.I. didn't lose his jewelry. He lost his crown. And in this industry, once the crown falls, the vultures don't just watch. They eat." Music, but the tension has moved beyond the Harris household and is now a referendum on the legacy of one of hip-hop's greatest icons, leaving everyone wondering if there is any way back from a betrayal this public and this permanent. Just when the world thought they had the Harris family scandal figured out, just as the blue folder and the jewelry sales seemed like the final nail in the coffin, a new piece of evidence has emerged that changes the entire geometry of this betrayal. This isn't just about a rebellious son or a heartbroken father anymore. We are now looking at what insiders are calling the greatest double-cross in hip-hop history. A high-definition video was just uploaded to an untraceable, encrypted account, and it shows a meeting that took place only 48 hours before the jewelry sale. In the footage, King Harris isn't meeting with rivals. He's sitting in a parked car with a person whose face is blurred, but whose voice is eerily familiar to anyone close to the grand hustle inner circle. The conversation is chilling. King is heard saying, "He thinks I'm the problem, but he doesn't see the snake right next to him. If I don't do this, we lose the music, everything." The controlled burn theory. The industry is now buzzing with a theory that will leave you speechless. What if King Harris wasn't selling the jewelry for pennies? What if he was sacrificing it? Sources are now suggesting that T.I.'s empire was actually under silent, hostile takeover attempt from a massive corporate entity, and the only way to protect the family's true assets was to make the brand look radioactive and worthless so the predators would back off. But here is the shocking revelation that changes everything. Music, the rival crew that bought the jewelry for pennies, they might not be rivals at all. New reports suggest that those men were actually King's private security team disguised to look like enemies. The jewelry sale was a staged event to distract the feds and the corporate spies, while the real money and the real documents were being moved to an offshore trust that even T.I. didn't know about. King Harris wasn't destroying a legacy. He was allegedly stealing it to save it from his father's own mistakes. But just as this heroic narrative began to take hold, a final, terrifying twist dropped. T.I. was spotted leaving his mansion late last night, but he wasn't going to the police. He was spotted at the private airport boarding a jet to a destination that has not been filed. Moments after his jet took off, Music King Harris posted a single image on his Instagram, a photo of the Grand Hustle King medallion half melted in a furnace with a caption, "Sometimes you have to burn the crown to keep the kingdom. See you in Tokyo, Pops." The world is now left with more questions than answers. Did T.I. and King plan this together to escape a bigger threat? Or did King Harris just pull off the most sophisticated robbery of the century against his own father? The most haunting detail. The blue folder that the police recovered was empty. The real documents are gone. Is T.I. chasing his son across the globe to bring him to justice? Or is he joining him in exile? The Harris family has gone from a public implosion to a global mystery. But wait, there's one more thing. A secondary leaked audio from T.I.'s private jet captures him saying, he actually did it. The boy actually stood on business, but at what cost? The drama isn't over. It's just gone international. Music. We are currently tracking T.I.'s flight path and monitoring King's digital footprint. Something massive is happening in Tokyo, and it's rumored to involve a figure from T.I.'s past that we haven't seen in years. Stay tuned because the next update will reveal if this was a brilliant rescue or the final betrayal that ends the Harris name forever. The king is gone, but the war for the South has just become a war for the world. This music is easily the most calculated and cold-blooded betrayal in hip-hop history. But now, we want to hear from you. Music. Is King Harris a hero who burned the crown to save the kingdom? Or did he just commit the ultimate sin against his father? Is T.I. in on the plan? Or is he hunting his son down? Drop your theories in the comments right now. The debate is exploding, and we are reading every single word. Make sure you smash that like button and subscribe with notifications turned on. We are tracking T.I.'s jet in real time, and our next update on the Tokyo confrontation is dropping sooner than music you think. Don't miss the final chapter of the Harris dynasty.